This is David and Mona from Owlish Folk, and we are not wearing pants. And you are hopefully wearing pants and listening to Jim, the podcast Sherpa.
I think that's the one.
Welcome to Too Many Podcasts, the podcast about podcasts. Now, podcasting from the Sherpa Chalet on Mount Podcastia, here's your host, Jim, the podcast Sherpa.
Hey there, all you rebels of the Sherpalution, and all you people of the pods, and all you podsters, and all you podettes, and all you ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages, and animals, feral and domesticated. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you. It's me, Jim, the podcast Sherpa, still here, yes, still annoying the airwaves with my voice. Anyway, I don't know what that was for. Continuing my series of interviews with wonderful ladies. And last week we spoke with Nyla, who was just incredible. And this week, we're not going to disappoint you. We got another great lady coming right up in the conference room of the Sherpa Chalet. And I hope you enjoy it this week. Very special. She's not a podcaster, but I'm sure if once you hear what she has to say, she really could have her own podcast. I thought she was really interesting.
Who's our guest today, Sherpa?
So glad you asked. Our guest today is an Australian supermodel. That's right, supermodel on this show. Mark that down. She's been featured in Maxim magazine, FHM magazine, has been in Playboy 7 times. She just did her first feature movie. She's got a small part, but she's going to be great in it, I'm sure. And she's also going to be featured in a television miniseries called At the Phoenix. Her name is Jasmin Shojai. Now, unfortunately, we had a little bit of audio difficulty at the beginning of the interview, but that's okay because it's mostly just me talking anyway, and I always sound like we're having audio problems, right? Anyway, while we were talking, Jasmin had asked if her cockatiels could fly loose in her house, which is where she was when we were carrying on our conversation. And we said, of course, I like my guests to be comfortable at home. So you're going to hear a little bit of chirping in the background on occasion during the course of the interview. There's nothing wrong with your phone. So the interview will start off with me asking Jasmin about her birds.
The really funny thing is I realized so many people around the world have cockatiels, but they're actually a native Australian bird. So if you go to certain parts of Australia, I forgot where exactly, but I think more like up north, you'll find a lot of them like literally in nature. So it's kind of cute when you think about it because they're really small and yeah, but they're really interesting birds, and as I learned online the other day, they're part of the cockatoo family. So, which may make sense because they have that little mohawk on top of their head. But yeah, so they're definitely my favorite kind of pet.
Okay, and so if everybody hears a little bit of chirping in the background, those are Jasmin's birds. Okay, do they have names?
Two of the girls are we got them as a pair, so they're like sisters. I don't want to say twins because obviously that's not possible, but I think they would have hatched, I guess, around the same time because they're very identical. So those are Jelly and Peanut, and then I have a boy and a girl. So the eldest girl's Lulu. And the boy's name's Angel because of his color. He's just pure white, but he's got the darkest eyes. So he's very interesting though, because he's probably the most, out of all of them, the most, I guess you would say, aggressive bird. He likes to just bite the other ones, so his name doesn't quite go along with his, with his behavior, but yeah.
And you let them fly around in your house whenever, or?
Yeah, whenever. I mean, they're pretty tame. So they actually half the time fly to you, or they fly to any high places in the home. So it's it's very interesting. But other than that, they're really tamed. And we never open windows anyway, because otherwise, they'll fly out. So.
Okay. And by the way, for anybody who's wondering, Jasmin right now is in Australia, and we are we are in complete different seasons. You're in winter and I'm in summer right now. So are you adjusting to the weather down there?
It's getting there, and it's not so bad as if like say if I was in Europe or Alaska or something. It's not like it snows, but I'm not a winter person anyway, so this may automatically be biased, but I don't really like the cold weather.
Okay, yeah, I'm the same way too. So don't feel bad. We can agree on that point. That's for sure. All right, so let's talk a little bit about you. Now we'll go back to the beginning. Your dad is Persian and your mom is German. So how did they end up meeting?
Well, it's really interesting. I remember, like, I'm not so accurate when it comes to history, but I guess it depends. But basically, I think around the time that my dad moved to Germany, or where a lot of people moved from Iran to many places around the world, Europe being one of them. There was just a lot of stuff happening in the country at the time. I'm not exactly too sure, but so that's why I don't really want to get into details about that. Otherwise, I'll make a mistake. But so a lot of things were happening, and I think my dad and a lot of his family members moved to Germany, and that's obviously where he met my mum later at some point. So no, they came to Australia. I think, just to kind of seek something new. I often say to people that I'm often like my dad. I'm very adventurous as well. So I love traveling and just, seeking things wherever that may be, seeking adventure. So they pretty much met in Germany, and it's very interesting because a lot of people have told me before that they never really met someone who was half German and half Persian. But I've actually Instagram, it's so funny. A lot of people will put their nationalities up there, and at least according to their bios, I've seen so many people that have been a mix of things. It's I guess it's actually pretty common when you think about it. A lot of people have mixed ethnicities and, parents that are from different parts of the world. So it's I guess it's not as rare as you think anymore.
Okay. And when you were a young girl, did you always like having your picture taken?
Not really actually. I really had low self-confidence. And I will admit, like, I think especially, well, actually, I wouldn't say especially like what when I was in primary school, but I think in high school as well. But specifically primary school, I was like this really shy little child, and I think back then kids could be like really mean. So I guess compared to now, I really didn't have that much self confidence. But it's really funny because again, I've heard stories in person, and again, like with the internet nowadays, a lot of people who may have been insecure when they were younger, as they get older, they gain more confidence for many different reasons and end up doing the things that they would have dreaded when they were younger. So it's one of those things that can happen, and I think I've definitely grown since then.
Okay. And what made you decide to first get into modeling?
So modeling was always something that I was interested in. Even when I was a child and I was insecure, I was looking at all these magazines and TV shows like Top Model, or even just like the actors in movies and on TV. Like these people and what they were doing were just so inspirational. And I was like, oh, like this is so cool. Like, I would love to be like that one day. You know what I mean? Like in the sense that I just loved what they were doing and who, like, the type of people they were. And I guess as I started growing older, I started like gaining more and more confidence. But it wasn't until I was 21 that I decided to pursue a career in modeling. It was something, I guess, spontaneous, something that I just thought, you know what, let's just do it. I want to really try this. And I guess one of the reasons why I made such a spontaneous decision, I mean, it wasn't spontaneous in the sense that like it was random. Like obviously I wanted to do this, or try this out. But But at the same time, I also wanted to do it for me. I felt that if I did it, like I would gain some more self-confidence from it anyway. There was no exact plans to make a career out of it. But before that, I was in a relationship, in a domestic violence situation for, many months. And I guess coming out of that, it was a very, very different experience than all the experience I've ever had. And as people can imagine, some people can really break down after those traumatic experiences, and some people can really like rise up from them. And I guess in many ways that just reshaped me and how I looked upon life. And I guess after that time, it was about nurturing myself, taking care of myself, and just doing the things that I wanted to do. So, I was like, I was in a state of mind where I was like, well, let's just do this. I don't really have anything to lose. Plus, I really feel I can benefit from this. So I did my very first photo shoot, and I had such an amazing time. I wanted to be there all day, and I just enjoyed posting for the camera. Even though I obviously wasn't experienced as I am now, I just really liked it. And so, you could literally say from that moment, I knew that I was really going to enjoy it a lot. And I guess that's the difference again between someone just doing it because, they may get money or because they just happen to think it's a cool thing, compared to someone who actually loves every minute of it, and, and they just have so much passion for modeling and so on.
And I mean, I'm sorry that you had to deal with such a sad situation with the domestic violence, but, I guess, you came out as a survivor, and it probably really empowered you, and probably that empowerment really gave you that boost of confidence. Would that be a correct assessment?
I think it definitely would be a correct assessment. And I think a lot of people would agree with that, but a lot of people would say it still must be a challenging thing. And it is, because in many ways, and again, this happens to a lot of victims of any sort of trauma. I think one of the main things, and I think this happens with everybody, according to, what I've spoken about with experts, that you really lose trust in many things, and in general. Like, it's not to say that you won't like leave your house or won't talk to anyone, but like you just your trust levels kind of lower. So you kind of like at one hand you're not naive, but on one hand it does affect your trust levels. So for me, it definitely has. I mean, I have to say I'm a lot stricter on who I trust with and with what. So, when I have it, and I guess that's just normal, So I guess back then, before all that happened, I didn't have that sort of aspect about me. But I mean, I try not to look at it in a negative way. I try to look at it in a positive way, or in a neutral way, in the sense that, well, that tends to happen with everybody. When trust is like a piece of paper, like if you scrunch it up, but even if you smooth it out, it won't be the same again. So it's one of those things that I think everybody, whether they went through domestic violence or whether perhaps they, had other things that affected their trust levels, I think it's a very normal thing.
Absolutely. Now there are different types of modeling, right? Because there's runway modeling and there is print modeling, right? Were there any other types?
You got promotional modeling. You even got modeling for film, which is pretty much like photography modeling, but you're constantly moving, and there may be more movement in the sense that, like, sometimes you see those ads and it's a swimwear ad, and obviously the model's looking down at the beach. You can almost call that silent acting, in the sense that there's usually no audio, like the person isn't speaking, but they're pretty much walking along a beach in a bikini. So I found that surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, I found that very easy to do, even when I was starting out. So I guess that's another reason why I got into acting, because I found I was pretty good at adapting to film as well. So yeah.
Okay. And how did you end up competing in Australia's Top Glamour Model?
So was a competition that I noticed online. At that stage, I'd only been modeling for I would say a few months. So it was still really new. But it's really funny because by that stage I had already been scouted by someone online to do glamour modeling and by that stage I had already done a huge portfolio shoot, and that person connected me with one of Australia's top glamour model photographers. And yeah, it was really interesting. So I did that and I started networking with people online and even on social media after I did that portfolio shoot. And I had all these amazing images. And anyway, there was this competition I saw running, and I said I have this amazing portfolio. I was a little bit, to be honest, I was actually really confident in a lot of ways. And I was thinking, you know what, I'll write a very good email to them. I'll apply. I'll send my photos. And anyway, I ended up getting a call back. So that's how I got involved. And it's amazing because a lot of the time, nothing happens when you do nothing. So if you as an individual, not even as a model, don't apply for things purely based on maybe the simplest of reasons, like, oh, there's already been 50 people applying, why should I apply? Like, that shouldn't be a reason for you not to apply, because often, especially if the casting director is very efficient, they will look at all the applications, whether there was 50 or whether there was 10. So if you want to be considered even in the slightest way, then by all means, of course, send an application. You know what I mean? Like, you would not do that. Otherwise, no one's going to notice you. No one's going to see you. So it was a very interesting concept that I knew already at that stage. And yeah, I applied, and I was very fortunate to get accepted into the whole competition.
That's fantastic. And you won it for 2 straight years. Does that happen a lot, or were you an anomaly there?
It is. Yeah, true. It's a very interesting concept. Well, the thing was, my title was actually more or less extended, not because of the sake of it, but because let me just try to think exactly what was happening. Because when I won the title, I had, there were obviously many reasons for it, and a lot of it in this competition anyway had to do with the representation of the model and what they had already achieved or what they were already doing. So they looked at your career, basically. And I was published in a lot of magazines by that stage, and I was doing a lot. And the really funny thing is, even I'm trying to think back exactly what was going on, but yeah, I'm without being like exactly too accurate, but basically a few months, I should say, yeah, I would say easily a year after that competition, it was either a few months or even a year after I'd won that title, I was published in Maxim. Yeah, I'm trying to think back, but basically it wasn't too long after the competition that I had basically got published in Maxim USA. I got published did my first Playboy appearance, and I did several other Playboy appearances. And then it was just over a year later that I had done my first Playboy cover. So I guess because of the circumstances, because the competition was on a little break and they couldn't run another one, they truly felt, the director of the competition truly felt that my title should be extended. And I mean, yeah, I guess that was fair enough considering what had happened. And considering I had done a lot in a very short period of time. So it was definitely a very nice thing for them to do. And, I think it was truly deserved on my end.
Oh, absolutely. You're putting the work in, so why not give you the recognition for it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And now I'm sure you've done hundreds and hundreds of photo shoots all over the place. And I was curious if you had any crazy photo shoot stories.
To be honest, I think, like, in terms of crazy, I I wouldn't say like I've had anything crazy. Like I think that we've been very reasonable and fair when it comes to like, as in my management and I, when it comes to finding very professional photographers to work with. Um, like I think it's fair enough to say that you hear all these crazy stories. I think I never really had a terrible experience, really, in the sense that everything went wrong. But I once, and I think this was at the beginning when I was purely starting out. So it was only like 3 months in. Like we did work with this photographer, and I mean, it turned out they had a very bad reputation anyway. And that pretty much explains everything. It turned out they just didn't even properly re-edit the photos. They were very slack. So I guess that's not a really crazy story. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that sometimes when you start out or even when you experience, you can come across many different people. So I think it can be very hard to sometimes evaluate and and know exactly if the photographer is professional or not. But usually, if they have a website and it shows their achievements and their photography, usually that explains everything. Of course, nowadays, sometimes you hear people in all sorts of positions, sometimes act unprofessional. So it's a very interesting concept, but I'd say most of the time, from my experience, not only from my stories or from other people's stories, when people are highly professional, usually, if their work's highly professional, usually they are as well. So it's sometimes it can be very hard to tell.
Okay. And when you've done Playboy, was it 6 times?
Yeah, 7 times now as
7.
of
Oh,
May.
okay. And what was
Or
your
June, I should
reaction
say.
to? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, as of June, I had my 7th Playboy appearance.
And for which country was that? Do you know?
So that was Playboy Australia. It wasn't like a big feature immediately, but they pulled out, or a photographer came out here to Australia, a well-renowned maximum Playboy photographer, and he photographed a lot of Australia's top glamour models here. And I was very fortunate to be part of that as well. So basically, they did a feature called Aussie Girls or something. So that was obviously in Playboy Australia, and there's so everyone got their photo featured in there and an interview. So it was a really, really cool thing.
Okay. And what were people's reactions to you posing in Playboy? Did you have a hard time with that, or people just kind of got over it really quick?
Think I did. Like, it was very interesting. I think a lot of people reacted really well, and it was so interesting because at first, or I should say prior to me actually posing for Playboy and it coming out, I had a lot of mixed feelings about it, but it turned out to be the most positive thing ever. Like, if people said anything bad about it, let's put it this way, I wouldn't know. So because all the feedback I did receive was really genuine and really positive, people have been congratulating me since. So it's really amazing. And I think really when you think about it anyway, Playboy is a very well-renowned brand. A lot of people know it. A lot of people know that it isn't trash. A lot of people know it's very prestigious brand. A lot of people know of or have heard of Hugh Hefner. So it's I mean, Playboy is a platform, or is an establishment of its own that's globally known. So I guess anyone involved in it is going to gain some huge success from it. And I mean, and it is what it is basically. And I think if people were to, I think people obviously can be very mean on social media, but I have to say I never had anyone in regards to Playboy say anything bad about it. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Being being such a long-standing publication and very reputable, it's really a magazine that glorifies women and and the female form, and it does it tastefully. There's nothing bad about it. That's the brand that they created. and
Exactly.
and they've got to treat you, as so that you feel good being on their cover. Otherwise, it's why would you want to do it? Do it 6 more times after the first time, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it all comes down to the individual as well. A lot of people, based on many different things, don't like necessarily posing in lingerie and so on, and that's fine. But then, of course, in that case, you wouldn't pose for any men's magazines, really. You wouldn't even pose for a lingerie brand if that was the case. But yeah, most people who enjoy modeling in lingerie and so on would enjoy that sort of concept as well.
Now you also, I know, I guess in your business, you have to promote yourself a little bit on social media, and I know we'll kind of get to that a little bit later. But I was curious as to what your take was on to doing that with kind of opening up your life a little bit to people on whether it be Facebook or Instagram or whatever medium that you're using.
Well, I think it can be very difficult sometimes, especially if you're not sure whether or not you should publish and be open about that or not. As I said, people can be very judgmental, but that's not even the worst part. I think the worst part can be like, and a lot of influencers have had this problem in regards to people being, and you know what? I'll admit this isn't a majority of people. This is probably a minority group of people. So, like stalkers and people just being very vulgar and very disturbing online. So that's probably where it's the worst part. But then I feel sometimes that's not really based on what you've put online. That's more based on the type of person that has approached you, because if people are aggressively vulgar online or they're stalking people, then they themselves have a problems, regardless of what you post. So I guess unless what you had posted was very aggressive and it was aiming at a particular subject or group of people, like say if you were racist and you said, you know these people are blah blah blah, then of course like you could be asking for trouble. But say if you were promoting a skincare product that was to do with caring for the environment, and it was vegan, and it was safe for your skin, and somebody responds to that in a very vulgar way, then I would say, well, that person clearly has a problem and they're trying to start something. And so there is a fine difference, because there was this huge thing, and this is kind of related as well, on because there had been a lot of cases in Australia where women were being attacked, or they were being the women were basically being attacked or raped or unfortunately murdered. And a lot of these incidences, of course, happen out in night as they were walking home. And of course, like naturally you shouldn't walk alone in the middle of the night, in the middle of the dark. But at the same time, it's like, well, those people, they weren't doing anything wrong at that point to suggest that someone should go out and attack them. So rather than blaming the victims, you should blame the people actually doing the wrong things. So in this sense, it's the same thing. If there are very aggressive people online, then that shouldn't really be your fault. Then those people are clearly have issues, and they should probably change their behavior. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's very interesting. And I would say, if you're meant to send out a peaceful message, then by all means do it. You shouldn't be ashamed of posting that. Because unfortunately there are some very negative people as well in the world. So you just have to be aware of it.
Absolutely. It's the best way to play it smart. I've seen like a lot of your pictures and they're fantastic. And, I think in your pictures, you really present a very positive body image. But I know we were talking earlier that you actually had some issues with your own body image. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So a lot of the things I've had basically have done have been, have basically been on my face. And the really funny thing is with a lot of facial enhancements, you don't need to necessarily get plastic surgery. So there's a difference between cosmetic enhancements and plastic surgery. As you can imagine, in very basic terms, plastic surgery is like going to hospital, you're put to sleep and they yeah, they cut you open. But basically, a lot of cosmetic enhancements can be done, just basically with, via the needle. So, you have dermal fillers, you have Botox, you can do a lot of skin enhancements that are minimally invasive, like dermal needling to improve the appearance of your skin. So basically, yeah, I will admit, and I'm going to be posting this on my social media, so I won't take too much time explaining exactly what I've done bit by bit. But basically, I've had, in very fair amounts. So obviously not over the top, otherwise I'd look like a doll perhaps. But I've had some dermal fillers, I've had some, Botox done. I've had dermal needling and PRP where they just, obviously you get topical anesthetic so you don't feel anything, but basically they needle your skin with a device, and PRP is just an add-on where they take some of your own blood and they put it on there as well, so your skin is more rejuvenated, it has a more glowing complexion. You essentially look like you've just got really much better skin. So that's like something, again, I think it only takes like an hour from my experience, and, you don't really feel anything. And again, it's a really good procedure. I would highly recommend it. Probably one of the most major things I had, and it sounds scary, but it really isn't. And I'll move on to a second note, but the first note is that it's, you're given local anesthetic in certain points, depending where they're going to place the threads. So it's called a silhouette soft thread lift. So yes, there are threads. Of course, these are dissolvable threads. So, for example, if you didn't want to get it redone after, I think, 3 years or something, your body would have gotten rid of it. So it's not something that has to be permanently removed, which I'm very up for, because most of the time when people have complications from something in their body, it's because what's in their body is actually permanent, in the sense that your body can't dissolve it. So your body does dissolve dermal fillers, it does dissolve Botox, it does dissolve synaptic threads. I think that's the right term. So therefore, your chances of getting allergic to those things, unless you actually have a specific allergy, is actually extremely low. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm just, obviously I did my research before doing these things. So I had the threads placed in, I guess you could say, like just under my cheekbones. So they were like 4 threads, 2 on each side. And they just, the doctor I see, he's absolutely amazing. So yeah, there was local anesthetic put in. We waited a couple minutes, and then that's when the threads went in. And like my face felt very tight for about a week or so. But then after a while, I went by the procedure instructions, and I made sure that everything was fine, and everything was. So now I'm so happy, because it's one of those things that it works over time as well. So the shape of my face lifted and started looking more better as time progressed. It also enhanced my cheekbones, which is another trend that's happening at the moment. A lot of people really like having really nice cheekbones. And the thing is, I think everyone has them. It's just that sometimes they can be hidden. So, often people will, like in my case, get a bit of dermal filler to enhance the shape, and get threads so that the skin is moved in a way that you can see your cheekbones a bit more. So, I'm very open about these things, and it's generally a very safe procedure. I would say more so when you go to a doctor, because I've heard rumors that sometimes nurses and other people perform this, but I think really you should be seeing a qualified doctor for it, not someone who's, you know what I mean, less than that. So it's a very interesting procedure. I highly promote it. And I think, by me being more open about it, being genuine about it, it may give people more of an insight to the whole cosmetic world and world and these procedures specifically, because often, and I did notice this amongst my friends and fans, people will ask and think, oh, did this hurt? What happened? Because like often, like, yeah, you'll get the doctor explaining the procedure. You go online on Google and you read about these procedures, but at the same time, it's not the same as someone telling you, whether it's a family friend or whether it's someone else saying, look, I actually just got this done. This is what's happened. Because often word of mouth can be the most reassuring thing, because you're actually, as a patient, as a person, they're actually coming from their point of view and how they felt. Because and that's totally a different perspective than what the doctor's saying or what Google is saying, obviously. So I guess I want to be more open about it as well, to also help other people make a decision, also help other people be reassured on what it is and what they can potentially experience if they were a patient going through these things. So I think it's very important to, I guess, yeah, spread the word and just be genuine about the sort of things that, I've done.
Hey, it's Jim, the podcast Sherpa. And because you guys are listening to too many podcasts, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. You can check out books like The Girl on the Train, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, and Crush It! Why Now is the Time to Cash In on Your Passion by Gary Vaynerchuk. We're always talking about Gary V. He always ends up in my podcast. I don't know why. But anyway, to download your free audiobook today, whatever one you want, go to audibletrial.com/Sherpa. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Sherpa for your free audiobook. Now let's get back to the interview. And I know there was an interview where you actually had discussed that you would contemplating getting breast enhancement surgery.
Yeah, like I've definitely contemplated it. The really funny thing is, and this is where it goes back to my belief and goes back to the whole foreign objects in your body. So the really funny thing is, I mean, most people would know this, breast implants aren't dissolvable. So a lot of people, whether it's not immediately, but over time, can experience some sort of problems, you know what I mean? And again, I'm not a medical expert, but from just using common sense, I thought maybe the reason why that anyone would experience problems is because it's basically like an object that you place inside yourself. So I guess just using common sense, you'd think, okay, your body could react in many different ways to that. So I've actually looked at another procedure where they use your own fat. So you could take fat from an unwanted part of your body, for example, your stomach. So if people had problems losing weight there, then they could take it from there, and you can reinsert it into your breasts. And there's been a bit of controversy about it because there's a lot of people who actually don't like it. Like there's a lot of doctors who believe, apparently, I don't know if I was reading this correctly, but it may make it more difficult for someone to detect breast cancer. So I guess if you were someone with a history of breast cancer, that may not be something that you want to do. And then, I've heard other women say, oh, it's not worth it. Their boobs didn't go big enough. But then I think, well, at the end of the day, if it's safe for you as an individual to get the procedure done and you're like, oh, I don't want to have implants, I don't want to have to deal with the side effects of that, then by all means, you should have the right to choose it. So it has been, to some people, it's been very popular in some areas, but it has been very debatable for some people as well. But I personally think, whatever it is you're doing, you should do it because of you, not because of what someone else has said. Because even with me, I will admit this, a lot of people, I'm not saying they coerced me or they forced me, but a lot of people kind of threw in their opinions and said, Jazz, your glamour model, maybe you should get implants, or, oh, don't get it done. You don't go that big and stuff like that. But then, you know what? I thought to myself, well, this is about me. You know what I mean? If I'm going to get something done, it's for me, not because, this is going to make me a better model, or because this is going to make other people happy when they see me, or you know what I mean? This is about me and my body. So no one has the right to really tell you what you should do with it. You know, it's the same like when you get a tattoo. Why would someone tell you to say have a blue tattoo if you want a pink tattoo, if that makes sense? So I think like anything else that you should do, like anything else that you do to your body, like tattooing and so on, you should decide as a person what feels right for you, not what other people think.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, you're the one who has to look at yourself in the mirror and be happy with what you see, right? It's not, it's not anybody else's call.
Exactly. And like any other surgical, whether it's mine or not, there are some sort of side effects, which is absolutely normal. So you need to be happy with the side effects as well. It's not just, how it looks. And that's where, again, I said that I was absolutely happy getting the things that I had done, because I knew that, Botox and dermal fillers and the threads had minor side effects that I was happy to accept. And I knew even if for any reason I felt that I didn't like it after a while, I could wait till my body absorbs it and it disappears. So I guess that's the advantage with some procedures. It's not all, depending on what you get, it's not all permanent. But I guess, again, as an individual, you need to decide that for yourself. So yeah.
Okay. I was wondering if you could dispel a myth for me. The one thing that I noticed about you that's very unique was your height. And I noticed a lot of models are usually, they're like 5'9" and upward, and you're around 5'6". Is that true?
Yeah.
Was that ever a deterrent for getting any jobs?
I think for a lot of high fashion jobs, I mean, don't get me wrong, high fashion is like very, very slim, tall women. I think that really affected me in that sector. And it really annoyed me in many ways. But you know what the really funny thing is, the more that I worked and the more that I really, gained more exposure as not only as a model, but as an individual, the more different jobs came to me anyway. And I kind of knew this would happen anyway, as well, because sometimes again, height may not matter for a fashion job. And say if someone who was casting saw me and said, well, we really love her look. She has an influence as well. She's very well known. She has represented herself very professionally. Why don't we take her? You know what I mean? So sometimes it's very dependable. So it's very variable in the sense that sometimes what they may be casting for may not be so fixed upon the height. And again, if you are a very well-known model and you've worked really hard and you've gained so much recognition and your portfolio is great, they shouldn't really, unless the job is so particular, that shouldn't really stop you from doing any fashion jobs. Of course, in saying that, and this is where it's really funny, back to the implant side of things, some fashion jobs don't really want people to have all these big, ginormous breasts. So say if someone did have a lot of implants done, had huge boobs, they may not exactly get a fashion job because of that. And that's the only time I've heard someone not getting a job at all was with that. Although in saying that, I saw Pamela Anderson in a lot of articles do a lot of like fashion shoots for Vogue and various other magazines. Although rumor has it she kind of went down a size with her appearance. So I think yeah, it can be a very interesting sort of topic. But I think on a general note, a lot of like high fashion magazines and so on will stick to very tall, slim models, which is fair enough. But I guess depends on what type of people they'll cast.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, what's an average day in the life of a model / actress? What do you do on your busy days?
So on my busy days, I am, because at the moment I'm trying to obviously keep busy, but at the same time, I try to not have just one stream of income. So I may be posting online on my OnlyFans, where, a lot of people will see a lot of my uncensored Playboy content, but they pay to see that. So that's something that, to be honest, I'm actually very proud of. A lot of people see OnlyFans as very tacky, but I think depending on how you do it, depending how you present yourself, and I guess it depends on the individual's beliefs as well. So, I try to be very active on there. I be active on social media as well. I'm doing part-time study at acting school. So that's something that keeps me busy as well. And it's a Cert 4, so I'm being graded every step of the way. So yeah, when I'm not doing photo shoots, I am often preparing for one. I'm often looking for other jobs as well that be in maybe the other area. Obviously my management are doing the same, or I'm preparing for any big projects that I may have. So for starters, my upcoming tour to the United States is in 4 weeks. So we pretty much, I guess, put down all the basics for the itinerary, so we have a good idea on what we're doing and so on. But yeah, I'm very excited for that.
It's great. And what do you like to do on your days off?
On my days off, I'm actually really lazy at the moment. So I watch TV. I watch a lot of comedy. Like, I really love comedy, actually. I chill with my pets. So, I give myself a facial because I'm very into skincare. So that's another thing. Skincare is really right towards the top of my list. And yeah, I just try to relax, really. I mean, a lot of people have told me that I've been really overworking, and I think you can see the tip of that iceberg on my Instagram. There's been a lot of posts and different magazine appearances and so on. And yeah, with my trip coming up, I felt, well, I kind of need to revitalize. So I'll need a bit more of a break towards that, so that I have a lot of energy for when I'm there.
Okay. And I did want to talk to you a little bit about your acting career as well. So I know you saying some of your modeling jobs was almost like, you said it was like silent acting. So, and you are taking acting classes. How do you feel is the transition into acting? Did you feel that it was just something you needed to do, something you wanted to do, just something to venture out into? What was your feeling towards that?
I think a bit of everything. Again, from when I was little, actors inspired me as well. So I guess subconsciously, I kind of felt that I wanted to do it anyway. But, I think it was about 1.5 years ago or so, I actually had some time to meet a director. And this director had a lot of knowledge in the Hollywood and general industry. So he was more than just a director as well. And he gave me a lot of advice, and, it was all for free. Like, yes, I had to go up and see him, but, my manager and I were sitting with him across 2 days, and we were just talking about everything. And they really, almost, switched me to think that, I only have one life, and I really should focus on my career. And that's something else that gave me more drive as well. And they also, mentioned that I'd be a very good actor in their opinion. And don't get me wrong, like, at that point, I kind of was thinking about it, but I wasn't influenced that much. And I guess meeting him was something that, that influenced me even more. But, in a positive way, it was a really good thing, because, I did a beginner course at acting school. I auditioned for the Cert 4 course and I got in. I started auditioning for other things. So that's how I ended up getting, well, actually, it was very interesting. So the 2 roles that I actually have received so far were, in the industry, it's called a given role, in a sense, where they actually approach you. So I was, because it's actually a really good thing. Again, this is where it comes down to marketing and the fact that I have, or it would apply to anyone else. When you become an established model or actor, and you have built a very good, I guess you could say, platform, people obviously recognize you. And if there's a movie or TV show where there's a role and then the person thinks, you know what, I can literally picture this person just playing the role so well. And obviously in both cases, actually more specifically for the TV role, they had already looked at my information online and my CV, because nowadays you can put all your information online where people can find you, because with the internet and everything, a lot of stuff is now online. So based on all of that and what I had already done, they really felt I was perfect for the role, and I said, yeah, I'll do it. And it was really funny. I was a bit nervous about playing the role at first, but as soon as I got up there, it was the funniest thing. And this is when when you're an actor, you get into character, and as soon as they're rolling and you're about to begin your part, you know what I mean? You're not outside anymore being yourself. You're that character in that scenario. And as soon as I started playing my character Amelia in the mini series at the Phoenix, I was like, oh wow, I automatically could see why they casted me for her. Like, I could really see why. So it was very interesting how that worked. So, but yeah, it was such an amazing experience. And last time I heard about both the movie and this, they're in post-production. They're working on all the things. And there may be another photo shoot coming out for the mini-series. So yeah, there's still a lot happening, and I have this tour coming up. So there's a lot going on. That's all I can say.
Now, the movie that Jasmin is referring to is called The Alliance. And I saw the description of the plot line where it's 4 drug dealers who basically come to an alliance, but one of them realizes that he has to kill the others. I was like, I'm in. Get me a ticket. And the TV show, like you said, is at the Phoenix. Could you tell a little bit about the characters in both of those roles so people know what to expect from you?
With the Alliance, I did get a supporting role. So I was playing Anastasia, which was the main character's girlfriend. Yeah, I would say girlfriend. I don't think that there were more than that based on the script. But yeah, so I did get a very small role in that. So they're basically in love. She doesn't really know much about what's going on, really. So she's oblivious to the fact. And yeah, like I will have to say, for that particular project, I was only there. They only required me for 1 day. So I had a really small role, but nevertheless, it was, it was still a pleasure to be a part of the film. And again, like, I could see why I was casted to be Anastasia, because, they were after a model looking person who, basically that sort of individual. For Amelia, she dates the main character as well, who falls in love with her. So he works at a bar where all these kind of funny and bizarre things happen. Not bizarre as in supernatural, but just really funny things. And at the one day she comes along and he spots her, but she doesn't end up being such a nice person. So she's a bit of a bitch, really. So she's just using him to get free drinks and blah blah blah. Like, she's just not really a nice or genuine person. And he discovers that towards the end. So for At the Phoenix, I got to play Amelia, which was one of the main characters. So I was a bit more involved in that. But yeah, playing both roles was amazing. And yeah, both experiences were phenomenal. So.
Are you partial to acting in dramas or comedies if you had your choice?
I would just do both. I think both are really funny, but a lot of it, especially in comedy, I realized, but then again, just recently I did an assignment on it. So I perhaps would have more of an insight on it. But basically, a lot of the time with comedy and with all sorts of genres in general, a lot of the functionality of the show or the movie is based not only on the actors, but pretty much based on the setting and on the script. So, in order, especially in like television sitcoms, in order for it to be funny, you're looking at not only the setting, but you're looking at the script and the sound, because often the script writers will have to write out the scenario in a sense, because otherwise there would be no jokes, if that makes sense. So the script has to be funny, and then therefore the actors would have to perform it. And then of course, then you've got the audio sound where where you hear laughing. And I think for some shows they have a live audience. At least back in the day, I'm not too sure about it now. So that was basically my assignment, and that made sense because you can't just put a bunch of actors on there and try to make the script funny. The script has to be funny to begin with in order for there to be an obvious joke, or in order for the whole scenario to be humorous. So it's a very interesting concept. So I reckon in general, like, I would love playing both. I think both of them would be different in their own ways.
Absolutely. It's and I just said, really, with comedy and drama, it really is all in the writing, because that's what sets up your character and how people are going to react to you, whether they're watching it or the people who are in the cast as well.
Exactly.
So, do you prefer movies or TV, or you like doing both?
I like doing both. I think both of them are a lot of fun.
Okay. And were there any actors or actresses that you would love to work with?
This is going to be a bit funny. So apologies in advance to my boyfriend. But, I always had this like little crush on Leonardo DiCaprio. So if I was to act with him, I think that would be amazing.
Okay.
But yeah, I think everyone has that. I mean, it's so funny. Everyone has like an actor or actress that they really like. But I guess, yeah, to me, I think he's really amazing. So I think I'd be really starstruck, actually, come to think of it. But yeah, I think that would be a good opportunity.
Okay. I don't know if you've heard my podcast before. I know you say you really don't get the chance to listen much to podcasts, but my voiceover guy his name is Bruce Goldberg, and he's from Australia, and he's done a lot of radio and voiceover work. And we had an interview on one of my shows a few weeks back, and I was saying how it's interesting how Australian actors can do American accents very well, but the opposite isn't true. Americans can't do Australian accents. I think it's probably because of the enunciation thing, that it's just kind of natural in your pattern of speech. So I was curious, can you do an American accent?
I don't think I could do one now. I think if I were to do some training, like, I definitely could. Because I think it's almost like learning a different language, as much as it sounds a bit silly. But the reason why I say that is because I did learn 2 languages in high school, though I forgot a lot of the words. And of course, my parents, they had their own languages as well. So a lot of the time when you pronounce a word, when you read it, it's not the same as often what you think of it is. So learning languages, you have to learn different sounds and pronunciations. So I guess that's almost the same with different accents. You know what I mean? So yeah, so I guess, like, depending on the individual, some people may find it easier to learn different languages and take on different accents, because it all comes down to pronouncing, if that makes sense.
No, you're loud and clear on that one. That's definitely for sure. All right, I got a couple of random questions for you to throw at you. Would that be all right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now, you must have a great team behind you that really helps promote you and present you in the right way, and just get things done for you. You want to tell me a little bit about your team?
So my team, well, surprisingly, I guess you could say my main team is actually like a really close group. So we've got my manager, of course, Josh. So he really helps out with majority of things, actually. We've got my mom, who I guess she helps with the more like wardrobe and preparation side of things. So my mom really helps with me preparing for shoots, and just, I guess, helps out where she can. Not to say that she just helps out, but she actually really supports my career a lot. So making sure I'm very representable for things, making sure that I guess everything's up to scratch, whether it's a photo shoot or whether it's another project. Then I have my Australian publicist, and we work from time to time. So sometimes we basically, work on different types of campaigns and ideas that we can come up with as a publicist would do. And then I have my American management they're obviously in the States and they're based in Seattle. So they're also their own team of people. And I guess having a close-knit group is almost like having a little family. Whereas, I guess it depends, but sometimes, you'll have people who are just part of an agency, but they don't get that close care as to someone who may have a small team, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
But I guess like without, with further defining it, small doesn't mean negative. Like when you have a small, good functional team, sometimes that can be better, or often that can be a lot better than having a group of 20 people who don't even know what they're doing. So, it's really, it comes down to the individuals working for you or working with you rather than the number of people, if that makes sense, quality over quantity. And that's often the case. The person who does the majority of work, at least in terms of representation and organizing projects, is usually one manager. And I think that's been the cases with many people. Like I'm not sure entirely what his team is made up of, but I know Justin Bieber was discovered by one guy who obviously, must have been a very professional person who, helped manage him a lot up until now. So yeah, it's amazing. Like often you just need to make sure you're working with the right people rather than working with with a large quantity of people, if that makes sense.
That's true. And I just wanted to throw in a little personal note. Jasmin's manager's name is Josh Schumacher, and he was the gentleman that I dealt with in getting your appearance on the podcast. And he was just fantastic, by the way, a real gentleman. I really appreciated working with him. He was really great. I got a little tiny podcast, and he was just like very welcoming and very, very respectful. I really appreciate that. So I want to say thanks to him. So shout out to Josh. Let me ask you another weird question. What would you be doing if you never got involved in modeling or acting?
I actually have no idea. I really love makeup and hair and beauty. So perhaps, that may have been something I was doing. I really love business as well. So I don't know, maybe I'd be doing something in that sector. But I think you have to be in general these days really open-minded. I think in a world that's changing and growing very fast, I think you shouldn't be like closed-minded, if that makes sense. So be open to many different types of things. And I guess, yeah, don't be narrow-minded because that doesn't really get anyone far. Like, to be honest, like, for example, this is a classic example of it, and a lot of people now notice it anyway. But when people say, "Oh, we shouldn't have plus size models," which nowadays is actually very rare. A lot of people won't say that because, again, people have grown to notice that people come in all different sizes. So why wouldn't there be plus size modeling? You know what I mean? So so back in the day that may have been possible, but nowadays people probably laugh at that. But, so sometimes, yeah, being narrow-minded is a really negative thing. And I think, yeah, if anything, whether you're model or not, I really encourage people to be open-minded about things. And yeah.
Yeah. When this show comes out, it will actually be the Wednesday before your birthday. And I was kind of glad that it worked out that way. And I was just curious, what advice would you give to people for achieving the success that you've achieved already at such a young age?
Just never give up. I know that sounds stubborn because I've had a lot of I've had a lot of mature people. When I say mature, people a lot older than me say, well, something doesn't work out, then try something else. But then I think it's not about something not working out, right? So say if and this is the way I see it. If I applied for 10 runways, for example, so this is just a pure example, and I didn't get into any of them, there's nothing in actual facts to say that the next time or at some point in the future, whether the future was in a month's time or in 2 years' time, there's nothing to say that I would never get a runway opportunity, because there really isn't, unless, you're able to look into the future, which no one can do. So rather than saying, oh, try something else, if you really want something, still want it, still say to yourself, okay, there's still a chance. It just may not be now. So still try and go for it, because you never know when that opportunity is going to come. So rather than saying, okay, I'm going to give it completely, try again, or try look for other opportunities, or again, maybe be more specific. For example, if they had given you, in this specific scenario at least, if they had given you the feedback that they were looking for taller models, then that obviously would indicate that, that you were too short in that, for them at least. But then there's a lot of runways where, I forgot what the exact term is, but in the description they'll say, okay, we're looking for a range of heights. And if they say that, I would assume they would mean that. So in that case, you try and look into the information of these castings and say, oh, wow, these people are looking for a range of different heights. Let's apply for that. And more than likely, you'd get the opportunity for that one, again, depending on how many people have already been casted. So sometimes often it's really not the fact that you're not good enough, but rather, all these different, circumstances and details. So in all honesty, don't give up. If something really means a lot to you, you will, pursue it. Of course, as they say, you can't have everything all at once, but you can have pretty much everything that you really want, at different times throughout your life. So if you're not going to get an opportunity around that time, there's going to be other opportunities. And then you can worry about that specific opportunity another time, because, these days we're very fortunate to have such, healthy lives and so on. So, the sky's the limit, really. You can achieve anything that you want throughout your entire life. There's not like a set limit. There's not really like a rule saying after this many tries, you have to give up. All of that is non-existent. And I think a lot of people weren't taught that back in the day. A lot of people, of course, the circumstances then were different. A lot of the time, especially after the war that I was reading, you were given a job and you had to stick out with it for the rest of your life so that you could support your family. Well, nowadays it's not really the same like that, and after all, it is your life. You wouldn't want to do things just because someone else told you to do it. You definitely want to be doing things that you want and that the things that matter to you.
Hey, that's great. That is really definitely inspirational advice too. And now you said you're in a few weeks you'll be coming back to the United States, and you came around the end of last year, and you went to Las Vegas in California. What were your thoughts on coming to America? Was that your first time?
It was my first time. I honestly didn't know what to expect, and I'm not saying that people were rude. Like, people were really nice, but sometimes when I'd speak, like, it would be like so obvious that I was a tourist. Although it was like really funny. Like, it was such a weird experience for me personally. Like, it just was sometimes, because like you knew, like, obviously you knew you were going to sound different, and I know that sounds so stupid, but in saying that, this was my first time overseas as well, so it wasn't like I was used to going to a different country and I guess, in quotation marks, be different, So it was a really new experience for me, literally, because, it was my first overseas trip. So, but yeah, other than that, like the photo shoots and the whole productive side of things were absolutely amazing. Like I really enjoyed the whole experience. I really got a lot of good feedback as well. And of course, I shot my cover for Playboy Croatia up in Canada. So I had a lot came out of it.
Okay. Were there any sites in the United States that kind of stood out on your trip?
Well, I think I just loved everything. Like Vegas, it was amazing with all the different buildings and lights everywhere. And like it's like all the hotels are almost like a theme park, like they had their own theme. The customer service was absolutely amazing. And it's really funny because like a lot of people had told me that before, and I don't want to like assume any reasons as to why that is, but it's really interesting because in Australia you can get paid quite a lot in a sense to be a waitress or something, depending on where you work. But then I found, and we don't have tips either, right? But then I found as a result, sometimes I'd walk into a place and I actually wouldn't get good customer service, but maybe that would have been because that they knew whoever they were, they knew regardless because of the fair work rules here in Australia and so on, that they were going to get paid their rate. So it was very interesting. And because they didn't, in Australia, we don't have tips. So regardless, as long as you're doing your job, you will get paid. Of course, if you're doing a very slack job, then I guess you'd get fired eventually. But so it was very interesting going into America and giving tips. But then at the same time, I was like, in my opinion, I think the customer service was even better. So it was again that's just from my personal experience living here and then going there. So it was very interesting.
Okay. And what do you think will be next for you? Are there any other areas that you want to branch out into? I mean, you kind of dropped a couple of hints in our conversation today.
I think definitely want to stick into modeling and acting. I definitely have a lot of like huge like goals that I want to do. In general, like I'm passionate about skincare. I'm passionate about makeup as well. Like if you head over to my Instagram, I've been collaborating with a lot of brands and promoting a lot of products. So that's something I love to branch out into more at one stage. Again, like I guess it would depend, but I'd love to have my own line of skincare or makeup perhaps one day. But I think like everything, like it's all a step-by-step progress. There's no such thing as a shortcut. So, I think it's something that I'd love to work towards. And yeah, I have so many goals. So I guess, like I said before, the sky's the limit, like, or, even beyond that, really, you can do whatever you really want to do. And again, like everything, it all takes time and work.
And it's funny, as you were saying that, I kind of envisioning these little jars that say "Beauty by Jasmin." You can use that if you run out of ideas or something.
Okay, I'll definitely remember that. I'll write it down.
Now we have a portion of the show that's called Shameless Self-Promotion.
Shameless self-promotion.
And this is where you can let everybody know where they can get in touch with you and things that are coming up in your career. So it's all yours.
Okay, so yeah, as you all know already, my name is Jasmin Shojai. I will spell out my last name towards the end in case. But basically, you can find me on a lot of different social media platforms. So for starters, for Facebook and Instagram, it's under the same name, which is Jasmin Shojai Model. For Twitter and OnlyFans, it's Jasmin_Shojai. So throughout my social media, specifically Twitter, a lot of my OnlyFans links I shared there, as Twitter and OnlyFans are connected anyway. So yeah, if you're someone who wants to see, I guess, uncensored Playboy content, which obviously can't be posted anywhere else, you can head over to OnlyFans because that's the specific platform for that. And it's pretty much just like a $10 subscription. You can cancel anytime. So it's a really like easy platform for that sort of stuff. On YouTube, it's Jasmin Shojai Model TV. So, yes, my last name is Shojai. And yeah, I actually love what I do. I'm very passionate. I try to be as active as possible on all of my platforms. Although, yeah, I've been told I have been, constantly active. So I can definitely say it's, there's a lot of stuff on there. And yeah, in the meantime, I have my tour coming up in the States in 4 weeks. There's going to be a lot of stuff, but rumor has it I will be again on Naked News in Canada. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And I believe all of that is viewed on their official website. So yeah, for people who know that already, they can head over there and stay tuned for it. Nevertheless, if it's a pre-recorded appearance, I will let everybody know what day I'll be expected to, that'll be expected to run. So yeah, I'm very excited. There's a lot of things happening about the tour. Of course, by all means, if you are interested as an industry professional to work with me or have any sort of business inquiry, now's the time because yeah, once I'm there, we will be very busy. So you can email him at joshshoemaker@jasminshojai.com. Again, a lot of the contact information is on my social media anyway. So we're happy to answer any business inquiries during this time.
I just want to wrap this up by saying, a while back when I was looking at some of your pictures there, I think it was a magazine cover that you had done and the headline on it said Rising Star. And I said, wow. I said, that sounds like 2 words that will definitely describe this lady. And I really appreciate you coming on here and being very candid about your career and, and about your goals and everything. I think you're really going to inspire a lot of people. And they know that there's things that they can aspire to just by listening to you. So I know that, like I said, you don't do podcasts much, but I was very lucky to have you on mine. So Jasmin Shojai, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to Too Many Podcasts, which you can always hear through your favorite podcast app or even at my website, which is jimthepodcastsherpa.wixsite.com/website. Don't forget, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And of course, a special thanks to Jasmin Shojai. I think we'll be hearing a lot from her in the near future. And rumor has it that her birds will be starting their own podcast very shortly. Instead of doing the usual Sherpa Suggestions where I'm recommending podcasts, I'd like to recommend a couple of websites in lieu of tonight's conversation with Jasmin. If you're thinking about having any cosmetic surgery done, check out this site, www.americanboardcosmeticsurgery.org. And that'll give you a lot of answers to some things you might be thinking about before you have the surgery. It's a very worthwhile site to check out. Also, since Jasmin shared her story about domestic abuse, the phone number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. And the website is thehotline.org. So be smart and be safe. That's going to do it for me this week. Okay, Bruce, will you please show our guests the door? Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for listening to Too Many Podcasts. Please disperse. You can go home now. I said you can go home now. Viva la chapelation. Viva la chapelation. Oh. Yeah, I'll come back now, you hear?